Hello there. So this is basically the coding exercise for fetch rewards backend software engineer. The problem description is user have a reward point system, which as a developer I need to maintain the transactions record containing the pair name, the points, and the timestamp. So when a user spends its point, I need to take care of two constraints that while deducting the points when the user spends, I have to consider the oldest points to be the first based on the transaction timestamp. And the second is the payer's point should not go to negative, and I have to provide the route to add transactions, to spend points, and to return all payer point balance. Let's see the solution of this particular problem. So for this problem, I am running this project using IntelliJ Ultimate Edition. And if you want to run using CMD, so you can follow this guidelines given here. You just have to cover all the prerequisites which I have mentioned here on my GitHub, and you have to run using the guidelines mentioned here. But I would advise you to use IntelliJ for every Spring Boot project because it has a very good support for Spring Boot development. So let's just open the project. Okay, I'm just opening the project, so it's here. I'm just extracting it. Yep, I've extracted it. Now let's just open our IntelliJ. So now I'm opening my IntelliJ. So what I'll do is I'll open that project. So it's here. I'm just opening it. Oops, sorry. Oops, I guess I have to open it again. I'm sorry for that. I'm just opening it again. Oh, it's open. Yep, it's open. So I will go through the files in a brief. So I have a common package name as com.example.fetchRewards coding. I have two layers for this project. One is the controller layer and one is the entity layer. The entity layer is similar to model layer. I could have used the model layer, but initially I thought I should use a database. But the more I went into opening the problem description, I got to know that the database is not required. So I've just kept it as entity layer, but it is actually the model layer, which consists of two class files, transactions, and the user. Because here everything we are doing in this problem description is just testing a API for transactions and the user. And finally, we have a controller, the which is the code consisting of the REST API, which communicates with the client and the server, which responds to your request, which takes the request and responds to your request. And this is the main Spring Boot running application file. So the reason I was emphasizing to use IntelliJ is because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to use any command line. You just have to click here, or you just have to click here. I'll just click here and just it's building now. So yeah. So when you see JVM running for this specified time, so it means that your project is running. Now to test the API which I have coded, I have a API testing platform known as Postman. I'm using the Chrome plugin. You can also go to the Postman website and download it, but I'm just using the plugin. I find it to be more convenient, so I will just launch the app. Now, this I've done previously. For your convenience, I'll just clear everything out and we'll do everything from scratch again. Oops, no, I don't want to save. I don't want to save anything. I'm just So let's just hit a get request to the transactions and just check what does the transaction says. So when you click on send, there it should be an empty JSON. So here we get an empty JSON because there are no users in the system right now. Now let's come back to our GitHub. So now there's no user. So first I'll create a user with the request curl request and adding with payer name Denon and adding 300 points and the ID 1. I'm just going here, I'm just importing, pasting raw text, pasting it here, import. So as soon as I clicked import, I get a new pop-up and the request automatically gets selected as post, your post. When you go into body, the body is what we have given in the curl request. See here, we have given the content type to be JSON, the pair name to Denon, and points to 300. So here is the body. So now we'll just hit on send. So we get a JSON respond with the transaction ID, the pair name, the points, and the timestamp. Now we'll go on the transaction window, which you have already seen at the first place. So now we'll just hit on send. So here we can see the transaction. Now let's add more transactions, and I'll be adding transactions which were given in the example of the problem description. Just for your convenience, you can add more examples and other examples, other points, other transactions, and check. So the second transaction I would add is Unilever. So second transaction is added with the status response 200 OK. 200 OK means your request was responded successfully. The third transaction was -100. -100. Yep, -100. So let's just check the transaction. So the transaction should be Danone should be 200 and Unilever should be 200. So yes, Danone is 200, Unilever is 200. The third transaction is not shown because it was negative and it was deducted from Danone's 300. So now we'll update. The fourth transaction was Miller Coors, which was around 10,000. I'm just hitting on send. Yes, transaction ID added, and the first transaction was again Danone. I'm sorry. Yep, it was 1,000, around 1,000. I'm hitting on send. I've got the transaction response. I've got the request response, and I'll go on transaction and just check. Yep, every transaction is recorded in this. Now you can also retrieve the transaction for a particular user. In this case, we have only one user. So if I go and select one, I'll get the transaction request, transaction response for the user ID with user ID 1. So now just go to the third point, which is fourth point, which is spend points. So as per the given example, we are spending 5,000 points for user with ID 1. So we are doing the same thing again. Spend 5,000 import. We're importing it. So when we press the import, we see a get request for this particular URL. So we hit send. So when you hit send, you get the response that how many points are being spent from each payer's point. So from Danone, it's -200 is getting deducted. Unilever -200 is getting deducted, and the rest points are deducted from Miller Coors. So now just check. Let's just see the balance of each pair. So to check the balance, you have to hit this request. I'm just doing the same thing. Yep. Import. You will get another get request with another window. Just send and you get the balance for each pair. Now let's just add another transaction with ID2. So you can notice after adding the first user, I have just used this window to add another user by just editing the body of that particular URL, which is and selecting raw. So here I'll do, let's say my name. I'll put my name, and let's give my me point 500 points, and let's give the user ID as 2. So when I send this, I get the transaction ID to be 6. But now let's see. If I send 2, I'll get only Gotham here. So if I retrieve all the transactions, I see this. I see. If I want to see the balance, see this is the balance. So yeah, this is how it's done. So this sums up to the explanation of the solution for the exercise. Thank you.